I've just got asked last week to speak at a morning tea for the White Ribbon charity, which is a great charity about, making violence against women a thing of the past. And I've been asked to speak, and I will speak, and I've been asked in the past to speak at domestic violence rallies. And I actually remember the very first time I was interviewed back in 2000 by Tony Koch. He was at the Courier Mail at the time, lovely man. And my book had just been published, and he spent 4 hours with me just chatting. We did a big photo shoot, and he was telling me, sort of saying, do you realise it's a big deal to write a book? A lot of journos think about writing a book, but it's a big deal what you've done. And I didn't realise it was a big deal. I can't not write. I just was grateful anybody thought it was worthwhile reading. Anyway, I told Tony my story, and 4 hours we spent. I didn't realise, interviews went that long. And then he was really excited, and he said he was going to run it. And I was really, I was really touched. He was a nice man and a very interesting man. And 2 weeks passed, and he didn't run the story. And I take these glasses off for a minute. He didn't run the story, and I remember ringing him, and I was pissed off. I thought, you've been bullshitting to me. I rang him and said, you told me you're going to run that story, Tony, and you got all excited, and, it's been 2 weeks, and I didn't know anything about the media then. I didn't know if, bloody something happens in a Kardashian's life, your story could get dumped. I didn't understand how that worked. Anyway, he said, Cynthia, no, I wasn't pulling your chain there. We are going to run it, but I'm going to wait till Domestic Violence Week, which is in another 2 weeks' time. And I remember thinking, I said, why? That's not what my book's about. And there was this quiet pause at the end of the phone, and he said, Cynthia, have you read your book? Have you read your book as a third person? And my heart was pounding, and I was getting confused, and I was getting upset, but I didn't really understand him. And I said, what do you mean? He said, Cynthia, your life is copybook domestic violence. It's a perfect feature. I'm doing a double-page feature. It's going in Domestic Violence Week. I didn't understand that word domestic violence applied to my life. I came from an environment where there was incest for the first 9 years of my life with the man next door and an elder that lived inside of my home. And, when people sort of say, why don't you tell anybody? I say, what do you mean, tell anybody? Tell them what? It's like milk in the fridge. Doesn't it happen to every little girl? You have no form of reference outside of the home when you're a child. And then I remember the very first, when I lived with a man, this guy that in recovery, I got into recovery and I was clean and sober, and I was dating a guy that I later married. God, he should have seen the alarm bells, but he wanted to marry me. And I remember one Sunday afternoon, I was getting really uncomfortable because Sunday afternoons with no drama and no alcohol and no booze and no drugs, and him being nice to me, I just didn't have the emotional fitness to cope with it. And I remember starting an argument, and he said to me, you do this every Sunday afternoon, you turn into mega bitch, what's going on? And I didn't have an answer because I didn't know, but I got confused that he wasn't buying into my argument. So I, got my verbal knife out and, cranked it up a bit more, went for his underbelly. He was doing something horrific, like, left his shoes out or something. And he was a big water polo player, very big, fit, tall man. And he wasn't biting. He wasn't taking my bait, and I was being an angry bitch. And I pushed him. He stood up. It was a hot day. He stood up, and I pushed him. And as I pushed him, I scratched him and took a bit of skin off. And he held my arm, and he put it down gently by my side, and he said, people that love each other don't hurt each other, and they don't touch each other when they're angry. I need to go for a walk. I remember going to see my therapist the next day and going, I think this guy's a bit soft. I think, that guy hasn't got a lot of passion. And I told my therapist the story, and he said, Cynthia, this man is respecting you. This is what a relationship is like without domestic violence and without alcohol and without drugs. And you've never done one of these, so it's going to be a challenge.